Yes, I am unmuted. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. We are live, Mr. Weber.
have all members present. And with that, I will open the Northern Lee High School Board meeting. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the Northern Lee High School District Media YouTube channel. All votes this evening will be roll call votes. A reminder to school board members that when you are making a motion or seconding a motion, that you please state your name. If we can now virtually stand and pledge the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, may we have roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Disler?
Here.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green? Mr. Green, are you still on? Ms. Heckman? Ms. Husak, yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
I see Mr. Green there. Mr. Green, are you here?
Hello.
Thank you.
You're having roll. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I
moving
joined via phone the way it looks.
on. We will accept, as always, public comment on any item that is on our agenda, as those agenda items are spoken about. And then anyone having anything else that they'd like to bring forth to the board that is not on the agenda, I will recognize you at the end of our meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Mrs. Martineau, so moved.
Do I have a second?
This is Robin. Second.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, or additions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
I see he's muted yet, I think.
Mr. Green? Ms. Heckman? Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
But I
Ms.
still
Culp?
don't think I'm here because I
Yes.
know. Can anybody hear me?
We hear
Yes.
you now,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
It's
I
not.
can.
Well, it's
Can you
recording
hear us?
now.
Mr.
Ms.
Green,
Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Mr. Green?
if you can hear us, we're approving the minutes and we're doing a roll call. It's your turn to vote on that. I think we just lost him again.
We can ask him when he comes back on. We currently have the motion passed, Mr. Fedorcha. So when he comes
Thank
back
you,
on,
sir.
we'll
Thank you very much. I'm sure he would say yes to that. So, but yes, I agree. Just to confirm it, when he comes on, we shall do that. And I will now turn it back over to you, Ms. Hosek, to report on the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. Didn't have too much for our last meeting. In September, we do have a meeting next Monday, again at 6:30. As of right now, it would be a Zoom meeting again. One of the big items we talked about was renewing and updating the goals of the organization, which had passed. A lot of similar goals from last year to this year, a lot due to the changes of COVID, what's the shortest time frame last year with COVID shutting schools down a little bit earlier. So some of those were rolled over. There are a handful of new ones. They are on the website if anybody wants to go look at them. Two additional updates are in regards to their service presentation. Again, this year, the Children's Foundation and the Carbon Lea Intermediate Unit rolled out their ESY bike and stroller donations to some of our students. Such a really great event that they do. They support the Carbon and Lehigh areas in that. There is a presentation that is posted on the website. These are for students who never thought that they could ever ride a bike or have a stroller that they could go on walks for. So I hope you guys can go out to the website and take a look and see what some of the opportunities that those children now have because of the IU. So that's all I have today, Mr. Fedorcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Huzak? Okay. LCTI, basically, we did meet. Our LCTI is functioning again, much like everyone else, on both virtual and on hybrid. Things are going very well with the programs. There has been a few students that did have tested positive for the COVID. None of those students really were in our building to any length of time or any time to infect anyone else at this time. We're very fortunate not to have anything that has really slowed down our educational process. And the LCTI is going to begin their budgeting because we have to have our budget done so that we can bring it to the other boards for approval. So we're starting to do our negotiations on that front. That is all I have at this time. I will answer any questions if you have them. If not, then I will go to the legislative, and I'm told that Mr. Link, you will add something to that, or from Mrs. Ekman, or if not, there is no report. I'm not sure.
No, she did not forward me a report. She did mention that the information I shared with the board was about the changes in occupancy limits was what she was going to share, and that's that we now have new guidance from the governor's office on indoor and outdoor occupancy limits, which is based on a percentage of the size of the venue.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Moving on, Mr. Green, Lehigh Career and Community College.
Mr. Green is here finally. After much
Welcome.
technical difficulty, I apologize. There was an article in the paper today, and this really isn't about us, and it talked about how much money a lot of colleges are losing and how far they're behind on the year. And I can say at this point, while we're certainly down in enrollment, we're not in the same position as a lot of those other schools, because where they're losing money is on their kind of room and board and things like that, and their cafeteria and their meals, and they don't have the students on campus, so they're not getting that money, and that's where they're coming up from the shortfall. So while we are down, about 6% or something like that, we're not as bad as some of the other colleges, and I think we've been able to adjust our budget sufficiently to make up for that amount. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mrs. Huzak? Does he have his votes in for all those?
Just Mr. Green, the vote on accepting of the minutes.
Yeah, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on then. We will have committee reports from the past committee meetings in your packets. Please refer to them if you have any questions. They are also online. And then we will move into our student reports. I'm not sure who's going to be first. Mr. Williams?
Actually, I'm starting off today.
Okay.
Sorry.
Welcome. No, don't be sorry. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. So my report starts off with guidance has done an amazing job with putting up the college visits. Right now, there's El Tri-C, Shippensburg, Moravian that are involved, and hopefully more are to come soon. Financial aid badge completion night is on October 19th for parents to log into for any of the students that are college bound. We had our HOCO ceremony that was broadcasted on Channel 13 on September 26th. The band started off the ceremony with the national anthem, and the court walked down the 50-yard line as their names were announced. The court consisted of Kristen Gelcher, escorted by Charles Wilk, Brianna Hoppus, escorted by Joseph Abadelli, Emily Hunsaker, escorted by Ryan Hammond, Natalie Keller, escorted by Grant Olwine, Alexia Mankus, escorted by Caleb Hankey, Ashley Torrance, escorted by Zevin Ambo, Evan Zambo, Julia, escorted by Brendan Smay, and then Joey Abadelli and Julie Wanamaker were crowned King and Queen by the previous King and Queen, Dale Wanamaker and Maddie Amorum. Choir practices start on Mondays, and the fall play audition started this past October 8th. Both choir and theater are ran by Mr. Ham. I will now pass it off to Aiden.
Thank you so much, Paige. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to see you all. To start out with my report, I would like to talk about the blood drive that Student Council will be holding this Friday. We're due to COVID, we have been forced to put in a couple of restrictions. We're opening it to outsiders this year. However, we're limiting the number of students that will be allowed to be involved. In fact, we might be completely cutting off students altogether. But if you're able to, please donate blood. They really need it right now. We had the chance to talk with the rep for Miller Keystone. So we're really hoping that this Friday we'll be able to get some good results for them. Also, fall sports started this past month with limited capacity. And from what I saw for the games I've been playing or been able to attend, it seems like the attendance, was well attended, but everyone was keeping, socially distanced and everyone was being safe. Currently, varsity football is in their record is 1-0-2, and their next game will be on October 23rd. Girls varsity soccer current record is 3-3-2, and this Tuesday is their last game, which is also going to be their senior night. And actually, if they tie or if they win the game, they will be able to go on to districts. So if you see you could wish Paige good luck because she'll be playing then. Currently, boys varsity soccer is 0-8, and our last game will be this Tuesday. And finally, girls varsity field hockey is 7-0-1, and their next game is actually today. So I'm not entirely sure what their score was, but I hope they did well. And that concludes our report for tonight. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone has an amazing month.
Any questions for Aiden? I just want to make one comment myself. Basically, anyone who is on the Zoom tonight, and that if anyone wants to donate blood and cannot do it at your time, you can do it really by going to Miller's themselves. I go on a regular basis to donate plasma, and every time I do, I donate it in the name of Northern Lehigh School District. So we can do that even if you're not been able to come to the drive. So please give blood or whatever, and always make sure that you donate it towards Northern Lehigh. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Is Mr. Stroll on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Keith, you're on.
Okay. So yeah, I have one item to report on to piggyback a little bit onto what Superintendent Link had reported regarding the attendance guidelines being changed. There's been some court activity in regards to the restrictions that have come down from the governor's office, and the board may have heard about it. There was a case, County of Butler versus Wolf, that was decided in the Western District of Pennsylvania that had struck down Governor Wolf's prior guidelines that had capped outside gatherings to 250 people. There were some other restrictions that were also overridden, the business closures and some other things, but most relevant to the district were those gathering restrictions. After that court decision, the middle of last month, the governor's office then filed a motion to stay the action until the appeal could be heard at the a court of appeals for the 3rd district, which Pennsylvania is in, along with a couple other states. The district court for the Western District denied the stay, but then the governor's office asked the 3rd Circuit Court of Appeals to enact the stay. So they have stayed the district court's order, which now allows the governor's restrictions to stay in place. Obviously, after that happened, the governor issued new guidelines, but the appeal at the 3rd district is still in play. So if the governor's office is not successful in overturning the decision from the Western District, then this new guideline may be overturned as well. But they could also argue that the prior order from the Western District is moot because the governor has issued new guidelines. So there's a lot in play here as far as what might come down. I mean, we're going to keep our eye on it. There's also other federal districts that are fighting the constitutionality of certain restrictions in place in their states as well. If any of those get heard by the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court decision would overrule anything that comes down from the 3rd district. So there's a lot going on. Right now, what we do know is the governor's guidelines are still in play, the new guidelines, but a lot can change. So I just wanted to give you an update. We are keeping our ear to the ground. I'm sure PSBA will provide updates as well. But I wanted to give you guys, I know everybody's probably heard some of what's been going on, but it has been overly confusing as far as how it's been reported. So that's my report for tonight. And obviously there's not a whole lot of clarity.
And thank you.
Anybody-
Any questions for Mr. Stroll? Thank you, Keith.
Sure.
Okay, moving on to the Assistant Superintendent's report, Dr. Stoker.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. We continue to collect educational information and data and adjust our approach within our delivery modes to best educate students during this pandemic. On the agenda tonight, you will see motions for 2 platforms, Screencastify and Edpuzzle, both for approval for 3-year licenses. Teachers can use Screencastify to create videos, narrate slideshows, and provide students with a deeper understanding of a topic. Edpuzzle can be used to embed questions like a quiz, notes, audio tracks, or comments on a video. We have used similar products or free versions for the past several months, but some are running out of space or don't have the additional tools we need to engage students. The cost for the licenses for both of these platforms would be free to the district, as the cost would come from our ESSERS grant. We ask for your approval on these agenda items this evening so teachers can continue to be creative in engaging students in the hybrid and virtual environments. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Stoker? Okay, moving on to our business manager's report, Mrs. Malteris or Mrs. Franz.
We don't have anything this evening, Mr. Fedorcha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we will move on to Mr. Link and our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. I'd like to begin this evening by thanking our elementary PTO for the painting at Peters in the like the blacktop, the macadam of the playground area. They painted, I guess what you would call a flat obstacle course out there for the children to engage in. Additionally, they donated a picnic table for the staff to be able to go outside and enjoy lunch while socially distancing. So we appreciate their support as always and their generosity. Would also like to thank this evening Northern Lehigh Team Sales donation of 68 gators to student athletes in the district at a value of $434.52. So we always appreciate their support as well, especially in times like these. Now I would like to share my screen and walk through proposed goals for the current school year, knowing that a good bit of the work that we were doing last year was interrupted due to the mandated school shutdowns. And also additionally, in the achievement and growth areas, a number of the state assessments were postponed, delayed, and we're trying to re-engage in that work this school year. So give me 1 second here while I share my screen. And Mr. Hill, is that now visible?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So again, in March, much of the work that we were able to do in last year's annual goals was cut short. So you'll see that this year's annual goals in some ways are a continuation or an extension of the work that we were doing last year. The first goal is the achievement and growth goal. So school and academic department leadership will continue to utilize student achievement and growth data from state and or local level assessments to determine an area of focus and develop an action plan to improve outcomes, which are differentiated for all learners. Furthermore, these data will be used to identify and address gaps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that coming out of last spring and through this fall, that we're going to have additional work to do to close any gaps that may have previously existed or were exacerbated because of the mandated school closures. So the data that we receive from the incoming assessments, whether at the local level or the state level, will help us make guided decisions to improve instruction moving forward for our students. Professional development, again, and this is much of the work that began at the end of last school year through the summer, and even as recently as this morning and this afternoon for our professional development day. We're looking to offer customized professional development based upon the needs of each employee, whether it's a support group level or professional staff or even administration, specific to the school, grade level, and or department in which they work. Professional development should be responsive to participant need, purposeful, and ongoing. Participants will be provided an opportunity for reflection and feedback. We will enhance professional development in partnership with external consultants and continue to further develop in-house experts for sustainability. Last year, at the end of last school year and through the summer in particular, we had a number of our teacher leaders step up and really start delivering focused professional development for their colleagues. And this year, we've also partnered with an expert consultant in the area of teaching in an online environment and customizing instruction for students. That's the Institute for Teaching and Leading. And they played a large role in our professional development that was delivered this morning and this afternoon. Culture and climate, the district will continue to develop a positive school culture and climate, including supporting members of the school community through trauma-informed approaches in a setting that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Last school year, we began to train up a team of administrators in the school district in partnership with the United Way and Lehigh University in the area of trauma-informed approaches. Again, unfortunately, a lot of that in-person PD was cut short in the spring, but we have started to re-engage in that. It is in an online model. But also we're looking to extend that into an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusiveness for our students and employees as well. In the area of instructional technology, which has always been an important area in what we do, but of course the current environment has really magnified and amplified the need for ongoing professional development in this area. Continued effective use of instructional technology both inside and outside of the classroom to enhance the education of our students. Technology will be used to strengthen communication, collaboration, problem solving, and critical thinking skills. And then finally, more of the district operations side of the house. We're looking, the Northern Lehigh School District will provide high quality teaching and learning in a safe and healthy environment and secure learning safe, healthy, and secure learning environment, while offering cost-efficient services to all stakeholders. So again, some of these are going to look similar to last year, and that's because administratively we believe that we still have work in these domains, so we can say that we appropriately address some of the work that we started last school year. Mr. Fedorcha, that concludes the district goals portion of my update. if there's any conversation for those.
Any questions from Mr. Link on those, board members? Certainly, one of our goals is to keep schools safe and open, right?
I think our ongoing goal is to keep schools as open as possible and as safe as possible through the fall and into the winter.
Thank you, and I think we're doing a great job. Any questions again, board members? Okay, Mr. Link?
I think Mr. Green may have a question.
Okay, Mr. Green?
I do not know.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay, then continue, please.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Give me 1 second here. Okay, up next, I'd like to present to the board, or I should say revisit a topic with the school board about a parent committee request. We had a parent participate in some of our previous school board meetings, as well as some committee level meetings. And that parent, who has children at I believe several different building levels within the school district, is requesting that we develop a venue or potentially another committee for parents to come and share concerns specific to the current teaching and learning environment triggered by the pandemic. So here, a place for parents to go with legitimate concerns or ways to solve common problems when it comes to the lack of standardization and communication platforms, expectations for virtual learning assignments across grades, and so on. Throughout the beginning of the school year, this parent has noted that much of the focus has been given to the safety within our buildings and lunches, both of which are important factors for the well-being of our students. Unfortunately, this parent believes that there's been little focus on the quality of education in the hybrid and full virtual models or the success of the actual learning at home. He is asking that the board consider adding to the agenda for this meeting the possibility of forming a committee to help parents better understand curriculum, streamline communication platforms between teachers and parents, clarify regulations and expectations across grades, and assist parents in problem solving these areas to come up with solutions that can be implemented in the long term. So I'm going to kind of turn that topic back to the school board and ask for direction on whether the school board, if any of the school board members would like to make a motion to develop such a committee moving forward. So Mr. Fedorcha, I'll look to you to open it up for discussion.
Okay, I'm opening it up to the board for discussion. Mr. Link, let me start. Number one, I believe the school board itself, as well as the district, has a number of committees that can address all those concerns, and at all those committees that parents and members of the public can be part of those meetings. And if they have any specific questions about the quality or whatever else of the education of their child within a school building, they also have the opportunity to speak to a principal. Is there anything else that can be added to that, Mr. Link?
Well, other venues would include one, always starting with the teacher or the building principal or potentially a school counselor. We also offer, for many of the areas identified in this communication, the Education Policy Committee or the Community Relations Committee could potentially also be appropriate venues. But really, also starting just that direct conversation with the building principal as well. At our elementary buildings, we have the PTO groups, which I'm sure either Mr. Schneiderite or Mr. Pine could speak to. And at the secondary buildings, we also have opportunities for parents to engage directly with the building leadership teams there as well.
Thank you. So at this point, I will say on behalf of the board, unless the board has any other decisions to make differently, that I do not see at this time a need for an additional board committee to be formed for those issues, that we do have vehicles within our system that can be asked and can be answered for those questions that parents may have. So at this time, I do not see a need for another meeting or another committee. Board members, I will listen to you if you have anything else to say on that. If not, We'll move on.
I'm in agreement with you also, Gary. This is Robin. That we do have the channels, and I guess the communication relevant to the student by the parent to the proper building is one of the good ways to go.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Link.
Hold
I think Mr. Keegan has
Okay.
wants
Yes.
to speak as well.
Well, as a grandfather of a kindergartner and listening to some kindergarten parents, I think one of the things that we need to do is focus on the newest parents in our district. What I'm hearing is that our programs are content rich, which is a credit to the school district. But sometimes the ability to maneuver between the platforms and get to the instruction is difficult, particularly for the newest parents. And for the grandparents who are helping out in the pinch, because there are a lot of grandparents out there that are not tech savvy. Look, I'm one of them. And sometimes it's very difficult and causes a little crying and angst at the home front when we're trying to get the work done. So I think we need to be able to address the newest parents in the district for next year and for this year, but be pretty cognizant of their needs, and also all the grandparents that are out there that are pinch hitting for the parents who go to work. So that's kind of my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan, and I'm sure that our administration is hearing you well.
No,
Mr. Link?
Dr. Stoker or Mr. Schneiderite, would you like to speak to some of the that's some of the feedback we also received in our most recent parent survey, Mr. Keegan. And I know that those conversations have already started at the primary grade level. So either Mr. Schneiderite or Dr. Stoker, if either of you would like to give some additional examples how those conversations are going.
Sure. I'm just going to add, and then I'll hand it over to Mr. Schneiderite, that I posted in our chat. They're holding almost monthly meetings. Now they're virtual for our parents that are in our elementary buildings. Those are Title I school-wide plan meetings, but they're open to any parents that want to discuss academics or pretty much anything that goes on in the buildings. You know, they take all sorts of questions ahead of time, make sure that they have answers for them, or if people show up, you know, to the meetings on the spot too, there's always a forum for discussion there. So I would invite that parent or any parents in the elementary center, grandparents as well, to certainly participate in those monthly meetings. They're really good discussion, you know, between the administration, the parents that come to those meetings. There's some really good discussion that happens, and a lot of action that takes place as a result of that. So I'll hand that over to James at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. And thank you, Mr. Keegan, as well, for bringing that to the forefront. It was one of the things that came up in our recent survey. One of the things we immediately did to address that, and you know, I would encourage, you know, they can reach out to me or to their classroom teacher. I realize grandparents are a lot of times at home working with kids. So what I did was I created it's about a 9-minute video, one with kindergarten, one for first grade, and one for second grade, that literally takes you from the beginning, like open up the Chromebook, push this button, click here, where it's a very sort of a sequential stepwise from the beginning of logging the child in to going next to how to log into Clever, which is a simple one button click, to here's where the work is in Google Classroom. I think sometimes once we're engaged in these models and we're engaged in these learning platforms, we sort of go about it because we know very well what it is, that not everybody on the other end has that knowledge or expertise. So I have those videos available if any parent wants to reach out to me. The teachers also have direct access to those. So I know a lot of teachers who you know, have been working with parents on this have been sharing out those videos. It's also something I could look to put online, you know, and just sort of making it available. But I think a lot of times it's you know, more beneficial for the parents that ask for that help, that we can give that directly to them. But I could also look to putting those online. So You know, and we're also working on ways, as Dr. Stoker said, to engage with parents. Mr. Pine and I have our elementary school family engagement meeting coming up next Tuesday. We hope to get a communication out to families tomorrow with sort of an invitation. They're agenda-based meetings, so families have the ability to pose a question, a challenge, a suggestion, or an idea. And we create an agenda and basically have a chance to discuss it. And our first one of the year, and it'll be our first ever virtual one, will be this upcoming Tuesday. So we're looking forward to that as well. Thank you.
I have one other comment, Gary. Is that okay?
Yes, please go.
One of the other things that I might suggest is that the board get a demonstration in a board meeting on how it's maneuvered so that we all see it as board members, particularly when there's information on the platform, but sometimes you can get it there, or you have to go over to the teacher's website or email. And that's the tricky, one of the really tricky pieces of it. And I don't know that board members understand what this looks like. So maybe at a future board meeting, we could get a demonstration virtually how it works, so we can see what we're putting our parents and grandparents into. Just a suggestion.
Well taken. Anything else? Anyone else? Mr. Link, anything else?
That concludes my board report for this evening, Mr. Fedorcha.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, we did have an executive session held before this meeting this evening for personnel items. Moving on to personnel, at this time, I will accept a motion to approve the personnel items A through L. A through L. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
You need a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting, oh, yes.
I'll be glad to do it.
I'm Keegan, so moves.
I have a motion to approve A through L.
Matt Green, so moves.
Do I have a second?
Bob Keegan, second.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Now, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Heckman, Ms. Husak, yes. Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Kern, Ms. Culp. I'll come back to Ms. Culp. It looks like she stepped out for a second. Ms. Martineau,
Yes.
Mr. Disler,
Yes.
Ms. Culp. Did she come back on yet?
I didn't see
Ms.
her.
Culp. Mr. Fedorcha,
Yes.
I will, when she comes back on, ask her again. As of right now, we do have the motion passed.
I thank you very much. Okay, then we shall move on to our policy motion. I will accept a motion to approve the policy items A through B. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a
Bob
motion?
Keegan, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Matt Green, seconds.
Any questions? Okay, now, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Heckman, Ms. Husak, yes. Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Kern, Ms. Culp, Ms. Martineau,
Yes.
Mr. Disler,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Heckman, I got her. Mr. Fedorcha.
Yes.
All right. And it does look like Mr. Fedorcha, Ms. Culp came back on. Ms.
Okay,
Culp, are
would
you there?
ask her for both- Would you ask her for both questions?
Ms. Culp, are you there?
Looks like she dropped off again.
Dropped off again. I will hold that one as well.
Okay.
Motion passes, Mr.
We
Fedorcha.
do have, it did pass, so we can move on.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Then we shall move on. Excuse me, I'm just going down through my agenda here. I lost place. Conferences, there are no conferences, I believe. Okay, then moving on to curriculum and instruction, I will accept a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items. A, do I have a motion?
This is Donna. So moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Mrs. Martineau, second.
Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry.
Roll call, Mr. Fedorcha.
Roll call, please. Roll call.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Culp, can I ask you for your motion as well for personnel
Yes.
and for policy?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman? Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Is there any old business? Any old business? New business? I will accept a motion to approve the new business items, and that is the new business items of the district goals. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Robin Disler, yes.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Keegan, second.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, moving on then. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman? Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you very much. Moving on to financial, I will accept a motion to approve the financial items A through L. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Robin, yes.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
This is Donna. Second.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman? Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is there any legal items? Legal items? Moving on then, correspondence, Madam Secretary?
There is one noted for correspondence in the agenda to acknowledge Plan Con K was accepted as per the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Okay, and we do not need a motion for that or a vote, so we will accept it, and thank you very much. And thank you, PDE. The information, the meetings are there for you of L-Tri-C, LCTI, and the Carmen County Community, or Carmen County Intermediate Unit. At this time,
Gary,
we're at the end of our agenda.
Gary,
I'm sorry?
if I
Yes,
may,
sir.
before we adjourn it, I don't know if this is correspondence or new business or whatever, but there was some discussion about Mr. Link writing a letter to the Borough of Slatington suggesting that they continue with the funding of the recreation center. And I guess we don't need a motion or anything, but I just want to be on record as saying I applaud Mr. Link for doing that. Thank you very much. I, as a board member, support it, and I hope that the coterminous municipalities can get together and keep the center moving forward. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And that meeting is this evening. I do know, and I do thank Mr. Link for doing that. I know some of us also, but one of the things that I would like to say, and maybe Mr. Link was going in, if I'm sorry, if I take your place on that, but we work well with that Recreation Committee Center group, and we need it basically because there's nothing for our children to do in the summertime. And through them, we are in correspondence and working together with them to offer summer programs. Mr. Link?
I agree, Mr. Fedorcha. We have a great community partnership with Northern Lehigh Recreation. I think it's mutually beneficial, for our students, for their families, and it's not just programs for children that they offer. It's for residents of all ages, and I'm just going to qualify it as a mutually beneficial partnership, and I believe it benefits the entire community. And I hope that they're able to stay in existence.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anything else? Before we go to adjournment, I will now look to you, Mr. Hill, for recognition of guests that may have comments for the board or questions.
Yes, Mr. Fedorcha, we do have a few questions. I'll ask the first two questions together since they are closely related. Andreas Hasselt asked, when are we looking to assess a possible 5-day school week in person? And Ashley King asked, what is the plan for second marking period as we are closely approaching it?
Mr. Link.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. Thank you, Mr. Hill. So we're still currently following the guidance coming down from PDE and Department of Health based on the county level of transmission per 1,000 residents. Lehigh County and Northampton County, which is a small fragment of our overall district footprint, are both still well within what is considered the moderate level of transmission. I believe Lehigh County is at about 45 people per 1,000 residents testing positive, which puts us, the range is from 10, anywhere between 10 and 100. So we're almost right in the middle of that range. And the recommended modality for the moderate level of transmission is to stay in the hybrid or blended level. Now, we do have about 3 weeks plus or minus until the change into the second quarter. I think it's a little bit early for us to say either way right now. I think we need to monitor it through the next week or two. But if nothing changes, and seeing the success that we've had with mitigating the impact of COVID-19 within our buildings, I would, if I had to make a recommendation to the school board this evening, I would recommend that we stay the course with what we're currently doing. But I do believe it's a little early to make the final decision on that moving into the second quarter yet.
Mr. Link, do you need any kind of a motion from the board to go beyond the first semester on that? I don't recall, or did our motion grant you the ability to make that decision based on state levels? Or was our motion just for the first marking period? I don't remember. Can you help me out with that, please?
Sure. Good question. The initial motion was for at least through the first marking period. And within the health and safety plan, you had granted me the authority to kind of make those decisions to adjust as we need to moving forward. Of course, I would do that with consultation from the Department of Health, monitoring the local levels of transmission here and in communication with the school board.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. So we don't need to take any further action on that at this point in time then. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Green, for that question, because I think that puts it out so the public understands where we are too. Thank you. Mr. Link?
Mr. Hill, was there another question?
Yes, we have one.
Mr. Link, I'm sorry, Mr. Hill. This is Mrs. Martineau. I just wanted to ask for clarification. We'd had some discussions and also through the media. Am I correct in my assumption that it's still true that Northern Lehigh is clear of thus far of any infections in our buildings, while our neighboring sister schools have all had to close for various classrooms or clubs for infection rates?
I'm going to begin that answer by saying, Northern Lehigh and all of our, partner school districts around the Lehigh Valley are working very hard to do all they can to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 within the school buildings. Unfortunately, some of them had to either close school buildings or quarantine teams or classrooms. We have not yet had to do that. We have not had any exposure within our school buildings. as of 8:01 p.m. on October 12th. It's a very dynamic situation, very fluid situation, and we continue to monitor it and do all we can, to put safeguards in place. I will say that we are being very strict with, implementing our safeguards, and so far we've had a great deal of success with that. Our school nurses, our teachers, our building principals have been, very helpful in communicating up to central office when they have questions. I have a direct line to the Department of Health, and they usually respond to me in less than an hour when we have questions or concerns. We've been following their guidance as well. And quite honestly, a large bulk of the workload has been done by our families, really doing what they need to do to monitor their children's symptoms, monitoring their own symptoms, and communicating directly with the school nurses and building principals and even myself so we can make informed decisions.
Thank you. That would have been my follow-up question. I guess trying to discern what we're doing so right. And I appreciate everybody in the community, the school, the administration, the parents, the kids, for fighting the good fight. And I hope it stays this way.
As do I.
Mr. Link? Mr. Hill?
Yes, we have just one more question. What is the attendance policy going to be for indoor sports? And if there is no final decision yet as to who can attend, how are we going to determine the need for volunteers?
So currently we continue to monitor the situation as it relates to transmission within the county. We have our guidance from the governor's office, well, the current guidance as it's going through appeal, as far as the percentage of the total occupancy that is allowed in buildings and indoor gatherings. That does include the student athletes, any officials, coaches, trainers, and administration that would be there as well. Mr. Geis and I are in communication almost daily, and I'll let him weigh in on this in a second, but it's almost like we touch base, 4 or 5 times a week on trying to make a decision for the winter sports, and we're just not there yet. Mr. Geis, anything to add to that?
No, Mr. Link, I think you kind of laid that out appropriately in discussions in the Colonial League. Winter sports have not even come to the forefront. We're still trying to make our way through the fall sports. So, and also try to determine capacity limits in our indoor venues. So that's about where we're at this point.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hill?
No, that's it as far as questions. There were some comments, there are public comments that will be available, obviously, on the YouTube. They can see those from the YouTube links.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight. I want to thank the board, and also wish everybody a safe and stay well till the next meeting. And at this point, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Gail.
Do I have a second? Mr. Green, anybody?
This is Robin. I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
I'm having too much fun, Gary. I don't want to adjourn yet.
So am I. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Heckman? Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Before we end, I just would like to say one thing on a personal basis. I do want to wish, and I'm hoping I'm doing this on behalf of the entire district, a happy birthday to one of our finest teachers we've ever had. Mrs. Edith Rader turned 100 degrees. Yes, listen to me, 100 years old. And we want to wish her a happy birthday. Thank you. Good night.
Not everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Stay
Good
well.
night.